to Chalice Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are a community of diverse beliefs and experiences, nurturing the liberal religious spirit and united by our desire to grow in love and in service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, you are welcome here. Whether you gather with us every Sunday, once or twice a year, or this is your very first time, we are very glad to have you here. My name's Jessica Schultz, and I'll be the worship associate today. Our service is led by our minister, Reverend Sharon Wylie. Our worship musician this morning is John Schultz, and he will have a little help later from our daughter, Lauren Schultz. Our song leaders are Patty Carlisle and Tom Carlstrom. Our tech team today is Hope Campbell and Dean Gadet, and our greeters are Debbie and John Ressler. Welcome to our Sunday worship service. Welcome to those of you here in the chapel, and welcome to all of you watching live using Zoom. For those of us in the chapel, please feel free to wear masks or step outside as needed to make yourself comfortable. And also know that you can hear what is happening inside while you are outside on the courtyard. We are always delighted to see newcomers joining us in worship. And as a newcomer, you might be interested in the groups and activities we offer, which can be found in our email, newsletter, and calendar. Online newcomers will receive an email invitation to join our email list after the service. And in-person newcomers, if you haven't already given us your email address when you signed in today, please consider sharing it with us before you leave. Our weekly email is always the best way to get the information about the many groups and activities we offer here at Chalice. And now, let's take a breath together.
A land acknowledgement is an honest and historically accurate way to recognize the traditional First Nations of a place. It commemorates Indigenous peoples' principal kinship to the land and the fact that they have not been and cannot be erased from their collective First Mother, the land. It is a starting place to change how the land is seen and talked about, according to Wanda Nanibush of the Anishinaabeg Nation in Ontario. For non-Indigenous communities, a land acknowledgement is a powerful way of showing respect and honor for the Indigenous people of the land on which we work and live. It is a way of resisting the erasure of Indigenous histories and working towards honoring and inviting the truth. It is a stepping stone to honoring broken treaty relationships. It is an act of reconciliation. Land acknowledgements are not about placing blame, nor are they intended to restore white comfort. They are prayerful, they are personal, with carefully chosen and accurate language. In honoring Indigenous peoples, we strive to learn the pronunciation of their names. Land acknowledgements recognize how systemic and institutional systems of power have oppressed Indigenous people, and how that oppression has historically influenced the way non-Indigenous peoples perceive and interact with them, in the past as well as in the present. And so, I offer this land acknowledgement. I acknowledge that I live, work, and raise my family on stolen land, the ancestral homeland of the Piamkouicham and the Kumeyaay nations, a people who have been living, working, and raising families on this land of their ancestors for countless generations. People who have an enduring connection to this land that can never be erased. People for whom their deep relationship with this land of their ancestors is inseparable from who they are. People who consider this land and everything around them to be part of their enduring family.
And now we light our chalice. the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. I'd like to invite Ronan Felly and Andrea McDonald to light the chalice this morning. As we gather together for worship this morning, being both near and far, we light our chalice as we do each week. It is a symbol of our faith. May its light be a beacon of hope for the many, those who feel lost, those who feel threat, those who feel tired, and those who feel uncertain. May our beacon of hope help you find home, help you feel safe, give you respite, and honor your searching mind and spirit.
The words of our call to worship come from the Reverend Chip Rausch. Deeper than DNA, more fundamental than molecules or quarks, at our living core, we are wholeness and transfiguring love. We often forget that power, becoming lonely or resentful, comparing ourselves to others, acting out of our fears rather than our living our glory. Occasionally, we rouse from our trance to remember our wholeness. For a time, we embody unsentimental love. We make efforts to wake others and to remain fully present ourselves. Our lives and our time here together are made sacred by our striving. For the next hour or so, and for the rest of our lives, may we be more aware of the spirit of life evolving through and among us. So may we be. Let us worship together. You're invited to rise in body or spirit to join in singing.
We're going to sing We Give Thanks, hymn number 1010, if you have a hymnal. Please be seated.
Our Sunday worship is the shared spiritual practice of our community, and we tend to the congregation during this time by sharing and honoring our joys and sorrows. Here in the chapel, you are welcome to write your joy or sorrow onto a candle card, which will be collected from you. Online, please write your joy or sorrow and include your name in the chat box. These joys and sorrows will be spoken out loud, and then we will remove this part of the service when the recording that goes onto your YouTube, from the recording that goes onto your YouTube channel. So this sharing won't be publicly available online. If you would like to send Reverend Sharon a confidential note about your joy or sorrow, or to make a prayer request, please email her. Her email address will be on the screen in just a moment. Please enjoy some music while you write down what you would like to share, so that in sharing, your burden is lessened and your joy is multiplied.
And Kay Campbell shares joy that daughter Mari and her family have returned home after an extended stay in another time zone far away, now making conversations on Zoom possible with grandchildren now that there's only 4 hours separation. So yay, that's good news. We'll light a final pillar candle this morning for all the joys and sorrows that may go unspoken and unshared. These two are held in the love and support of our community. Now I'd like to invite the children forward for the story. Our story is titled Have Fun, Molly Lou Mellon, written by Patty Lovell and illustrated by David Catrow. Molly Lou Mellon's toy chest overflowed with whoozy-whatsits of all shapes and sizes. Her grandma had told her, "Back in the olden days, I didn't have fancy dolls or action figures. I made them out of twigs, leaves, and flowers like hollyhocks and daisies." So she did just that. Molly Lou Mellon's backyard had a big weeping willow and crumbly rock walls with thingamajigs peeking out from every crevice. Her grandma had told her, "Back in the olden days, I didn't have a store-bought dollhouse. I made one in my backyard." So she did just that. Molly Lou Mellon's garage was full of colorful boxes and crates. Her grandma had told her, "Back in the olden days, I didn't have a race car. I sat in a cardboard box and sped down the hill." So she did just that. Molly Lou Mellon lay on her back in the tall, willowy grass. Her grandma had told her, "Back in the olden days, I didn't have a television. I watched the clouds that floated by, and I saw lots of things in them." So she did just that. One day, new neighbors moved in next door. When Molly Lou Mellon went to welcome their little girl, she heard Gertie say to her mom, "I'm bored, bored, bored." Molly Lou Mellon invited Gertie over to play. On Monday, Gertie brought over her darling Darla Deluxe dollhouse, complete with an electric mixer and working chandeliers. Molly Lou Mellon showed Gertie her tree root palace, complete with acorn-capped dinner plates, woven leaf air conditioning system, and cicada jacuzzi. Gertie was amazed. On Tuesday, Gertie drove over in her battery-operated, fully loaded Coupe de Ville. "Look out below!" Molly Lou Mellon screamed right before hurtling down the hill in her turbo boxcar, hand-painted with orange and red flames. Gertie was amazed. On Wednesday, Gertie was going to call Molly Lou Mellon on her cell phone, but then she heard a strange sound coming from an old tin can that was dangling in the window. "This is the operator. Will you accept a call from me, Molly Lou Mellon?" "Yes," Gertie spoke into the can. "Great, come on over." Click. Gertie was amazed. On Thursday, Gertie asked Molly Lou Mellon if she'd like to come over and watch cartoons on her big screen TV. "It's 120 inches wide." Molly Lou Mellon said, "Not today, thanks. I'm going to go watch the clouds. They're sky wide." Gertie was amazed. On Friday, Gertie brought over a homemade doll with a frilly hollyhock skirt and violets for hair. "It's for your palace," she said. And Molly Lou Mellon was amazed. On Friday evening, Molly Lou Mellon and Gertie were tired from playing all week. They lay down in the tall, willowy grass, looking up at the clouds. "I see a butterfly," Gertie giggled, "and a penguin and a refrigerator." Molly Lou Mellon opened her eyes wide and grinned her biggest grin. "I see a grandma-shaped cloud winking at me." And Molly Lou Mellon winked right back.
Now we will sing the children out to their RE classes. Walk on your path with a song so sweet that everywhere you go there is love all around. Walk on your path with a song so sweet that everywhere you go there is love all around.
One day, the Zen master Nan In had a visit from a foreign scholar of Eastern religions who came to inquire about Zen. Instead of listening to the master, however, the visitor kept talking on and on about his own ideas and all that he knew. After a while of this talking, Nan In served tea. He poured the tea into his visitor's cup until it was full, and then he kept on pouring. The tea poured over the side of the cup, filled the saucer, and then spilled onto the man's pants and the floor. Finally, the visitor could not restrain himself. "Don't you see that it is full?" he said. "You can't get any more in." "Just so," replied Nan In, stopping at last. "And like this cup, you are filled with your own ideas. How can you expect me to give you Zen unless you offer me an empty cup?"
So this morning is the last service in a series we've had this year on our theme of studying white supremacy culture characteristics as identified and articulated by Dr. Tema Okun. We kicked this off in September with a sermon from me, and then we've had 9 lay-led services this year examining different characteristics and their antidotes. And I'm so grateful to the 26 Chalice congregants who led our services on characteristics and antidotes, characteristics of fear, one right way, quantity over quality, either or and the binary, fear of open conflict and the right to comfort, individualism and that feeling of I'm the only one, worship of the written word, denial and defensiveness, and urgency. These lay-led services have been creative, personal, meaningful, and powerful. And I know I've heard from so many of you how great it has been to have lay-led services on these topics. I want to give extra gratitude to our leader team for this Spirit Study topic, Ann McKiernan, Dean Gadet, and Amber Vlasnik. None of this would have been possible without them, and they worked closely with each study group and were involved with each service and helping it all come together. So yeah, very grateful. This was a topic worthy of our attention for several reasons, and probably first and foremost is that the Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism Collective asked Unitarian Universalists both to learn about white supremacy and to study these characteristics in particular. So that request came some years ago. We did have a white supremacy teach-in after that request, and the white supremacy culture characteristics were presented then, but it's taken this long for us to come back to them and go deeper in learning about them. So yeah, I think that's the most critical thing to remember if you've struggled with it in any way, or you've wondered why this is worthy of our worship time. We're responding to a request from a group of Black Unitarian Universalists. But it's also worth knowing that these ideas aren't obscure, that many of our folks were exposed to these ideas before hearing about them here at Chalice. And in particular, I think in academia, folks are learning about these characteristics and thinking about how they apply to learning institutions. And I think it's part of our work as a religious community to sort of stay current with progressive ideas and conversations that are happening even outside of our little circle of religious community. So good for us to know that these conversations and ideas are happening. And then thirdly, I think this kind of work really needs to be done in community. These characteristics, remember, they come out of organizations that were doing work with other organizations and institutions. These are communal characteristics. They're like habits we fall into. Not everyone will, for sure, but these are the characteristics of, they're named as white supremacy culture. We can call them dominant culture in the United States. And so whether you personally connect with all of them, they're an easy habits that we fall into in communal organizational life. And so we will, it's good for us to have a shared language to work on them together. I think those of us who have engaged with these characteristics and are enlivened by them have had moments. You don't just sort of flip a switch and think like, I don't use this way of thinking now, I use this way of thinking. Instead, it's like a continual process of discovery. So, I can think of a moment from a board meeting, and I don't even remember what I was talking about, but I said, oh, well, it's this or this. And then the person next to me said like, well, or maybe it's both, or maybe it's more. And we had that laugh and that excitement of recognizing that habit of white supremacy culture, and then the stretch of our minds to try and think in some different ways. How do we break our own habit of putting things into two neat categories? I love our story this morning. We've heard it a couple of times over the past few years. But listening to it this time, I recognized that it can be read as an either-or story, right? We're really presented with the better way, which is Molly Lou's way of playing, which is creative and generative. And, I think there's at least I project onto it a little bit of disdain for Gertie's toys and TV. And, I find myself wishing, I wish there was just a little more spaciousness that, it's okay to sometimes just watch cartoons. And so in thinking about that, I started to think well, maybe we shouldn't be using this story in worship, right? And then I noticed in myself my own either or thinking. The story's not perfect. It doesn't, share the moral I want it to share in exactly the way I want to share it. So now how do I break down that way of thinking? And I think what came to my mind is, well, we just need more stories. We don't need one story to be perfect and tell us everything, but so let's have more stories about different ways of playing and invite you all, if you know of a story that lifts up that like sometimes it's okay to like the toy you got from the store, and that could be okay too, then those are the layers we want to start to bring into community. So more messages, more stories. And so that experience of all of that kind of thinking really feels to me harder than just learning something new. Unlearning something is hard work. Who's very interested in ideas around unlearning are educators, the folks out there, especially working with children. There are books you can read about unlearning. So I found an article online from an educator, Dr. Jeff Borden, talking about what happens in our brains when we learn and then when we try to unlearn. Our brains are has plasticity, the continually growing and evolving. And when we learn new things, we form new neural pathways. That process does get harder as we get older. Our brains want to be efficient, which means they want to use existing neural pathways, and sort of the work of forming new neural pathways it stretches us and pushes us and can feel challenging. From what we know and understand about the brain, it doesn't actually let go of a lot of information. We just learn new things sometimes on top of things. That may feel like news to some of us who feel like we're forgetting everything. But as an example, a few years ago I was writing something and I couldn't remember the word ambulance. And so what I could remember was emergency van. So I typed that into Google and the word ambulance came up and I thought, oh, that was the word I was looking for. So I hadn't forgotten it. If I had forgotten it, I wouldn't have recognized it when I found it again. I knew there was a word. I knew I couldn't find it. So it was in there. I just wasn't accessing it. And so a lot of brain work, we think that's how it works. This author, Dr. Jeff Borden, describes it as like when an iceberg forms, and so it might start with a river that freezes, and then more water freezes on top of that until there's an iceberg, so that we don't forget the first thing we learned, even if we've subsequently learned that it's wrong or there's a correction for it. It's still there. Just hopefully we can put some other learning on top of it. So his encouragement for us, he identifies what he calls some main ingredients for unlearning. And the first and foremost is just a willingness to learn new things. We're not going to take in a lot of new information if we just feel closed off to information. So he lifts that up. He suggests several different sort of activities or modes of thinking just to get us thinking in fresh ways. And one is, to be aware of sort of the news bubbles we can put ourselves in on the internet, especially as algorithms just feed us things we like to read already. So those are often going to be things that just reinforce opinions or viewpoints we already have. So we can intentionally, I think, so that's both the challenge of the internet. It will just show us the things we already like to read. But one of the blessings of the internet is we can seek out opposing viewpoints very easily and read what other people think about XYZ topic. So we can seek those out. He talks about also associative thinking. So not just allowing opposing ideas, but being intentional about pursuing ideas from other contexts. So if you're comfortable, whether it's reading about science or music or theater or politics, to intentionally at times seek out other ways of thinking, sort of not your norm or your comfort zone, and read about that. Reading something fresh and that's new can really open us up to thinking about all kinds of things in different ways. And then he also names sort of that trick, if you remember the movie Dead Poets Society, where he has them stand up on their desks, physically putting ourselves in a different sort of geographical space can also really open our brains up to some ideas and different ways of thinking than we've had before. So yeah, putting ourselves, go read your book by the lake, or somewhere you haven't gone in a while. And then his Oh, and then he encourages us, he calls it research saturation. But especially in our internet times, right? We're presented with all kinds of information and we don't always know where it comes from. So to take those steps to be sure that what you're reading comes from some sort of reliable source, sort of track it down, or if you see a quote, try to find the original source of the quote, those kinds of things. I took his own advice and checked him out. He does work at an accredited university, so isn't just a guy who posted a thing on the internet, but appears to be a real, teacher. So, I hope part of what we come to Unitarian Universalism with is a yearning for lifelong learning, to keep growing, keep challenging ourselves. And just what I want to lift up today is that, it can be really hard, especially when we thought we knew something, and then, maybe there's something more to learn about that. It can be really shocking to find out that something you really thought was factual maybe has been disproven since then. Again, in our internet times, if there's some story or study you really cherish, you might Google that and just make sure that it's still considered to be reliable and good information. I had 3 cautions for you when we kicked off this series. The first was that I hoped you would, so all of this information is on a website. She intentionally, Dr. Tamo Kuhn, didn't put it in book form, even though it's book length, because she wanted it to be as widely accessible as possible, and also wanted it to be able to evolve if it needed change or needed to add information or ideas. So I hope, even if you don't feel interested in going deeper, that you might just go to the homepage and read through that. It's still really great information. It's worth knowing, if you don't know, that there are some people who just hate this topic, this idea of white supremacy culture characteristics. And we'll see if you mention Tamo Kuhn, that feels really provocative to some folks. It gets lumped with, remember how folks have felt so alarmed about critical race theory? This is not critical race theory. I'm not sure what people were alarmed about was critical race theory. But anyway, this is but it's race stuff adjacent. So, I sort of hope at a minimum that having attended some service about this, you can hear that whatever you think about it, it's not that transgressive or provocative. As one of you named early on, a lot of these ideas feel like things you learned growing up that pluralism is good. We need to think about the community, not just the individual. These aren't the first time these antidotes have ever been articulated as work we should be aiming towards. So, anytime we hear that people feel provoked by something, I encourage all of us to learn more and just check out how we feel about it. I think my second tip was, I have a lot of lists this morning. This is a tool. These ideas are a tool, not a weapon. And this is important because it's important to Dr. Tamo Kuhn. It's featured, I think, on that homepage, that she doesn't want us to sort of say to someone else that's either or thinking. You need to, what would be the right word? Overcome that. Or I can't give this to you in writing. Writing is a tool of white supremacy. That's not what these ideas are for. They're to help us think in some new and fresh ways. So, yeah. And then thirdly, so the spirit study topic was called Imagining Liberation, and that name came from our leader group, and I really appreciate it because I think for those of us who are working with these ideas, it does feel really liberating, that moment of realizing, I don't want to think of it as good or bad. How can I add another category and another category, or how can I think differently? Feels exciting, and liberation does feel like the right word. And so this is an invitation for all of us to let go of habits that may actually oppress ourselves and our own thinking. And we don't want to equate the liberation from these, cultural characteristics with the liberation and, the oppression of BIPOC people and our history of slavery and housing unfairness and those kinds of things. So, we can be excited by the ideas of liberation in both ways, but let's not treat them as if they're sort of equally oppressive and equally liberatory. So I hope this year of learning has been meaningful and has touched you. May we be open and curious and stretch our brains, keep building new neural pathways, and may we continue to find ideas that are interesting to us as a community so we can grow and learn together. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you to rise in body or spirit to join in singing.
Please be seated.
The Sunday offering is an expression of the generosity that makes our congregational life possible. As Buddhist teacher Christina Feldman writes, generosity lies at the heart of spiritual practice. Extending generosity to ourselves and others gladdens our heart, is a direct way of healing division, and brings joy. We encourage you to text your donation to Chalice. If you haven't texted a donation before, once you text the amount, you'll get a reply with a link to enter your card information. If your Sunday donation is meant to be part of your pledge payment, please be sure to indicate pledge after the dollar amount. The phone number for text donations will be on the screen in a moment. If you prefer to make an in-person donation of cash or checks, there are envelopes and a donation box right there by the chapel double doors, and you can leave those donations after the service. Please give generously. Please join in dedicating our offering with the words of affirmation.
Childless UU congregation, our mission is to inspire individual and communal spiritual growth.
Trouble, baby, in this world there's a whole lot of pain. In this world there's a whole lot of trouble and a whole lot of ground to gain. Why take when you could be giving? Why watch as the world goes by? It's a hard enough life to be living. Why walk when you can fly? There's a whole lot of shame. In this world, there's a whole lot of sorrow and a whole lot of ground to gain. When you spend your whole life wishing, wanting and wondering why, it's a long enough life to be living. Why walk when you can fly? There's a whole lot of gold, and in this world there's a whole lot of plain. In this world you're a soul for a compass and a heart for a pair of wings. There's a star on the far horizon, rising bright in the azure sky. For the rest of the time that you're given, why walk when you can fly?
The words of our prayer come from the Reverend Elizabeth Wynne, adapted. Spirit, we would really rather not learn this. Didn't think we needed to. We thought someone else could do it. Thought a leader was coming to do it. Thought the young people could do it, or the elders could do it, or the professionals. Or we don't want to learn it because it means letting go of something we hold dear. Letting go of being people who know the answers. Letting go of being people who don't know. Letting go of the way we see the world. Letting go of how we might have to change. Letting go of certainty, of logic, of facts, of control, of the myth that you can live on this earth and not harm, or the myth that we can't learn anything new. Help us to learn it, please, and then help us to live what we have learned and do right by the gift of being taught. Amen. you're invited again to rise in body or spirit to sing our hymn of the month.
This is the hymn of the month, and it happens to be one that we are very familiar with and love to sing. So please join in singing The Fire of Commitment. Please be seated.
Our closing words today come from Melissa Jeter. We extinguish this chalice today, but we are illuminated by a faith that allows us to sit and think. In this quiet time, we can reflect in solitude, meditating on love and growing out of our comfort. Though we experience discomfort, we are excited to give birth to a new, just world. Love and blessings to each of you. You are invited to close our time today by singing The Well, and after our closing hymn, please return to your seats for a couple of quick announcements. For a long series
We drink from the well together, cool, cool water that quenches my thirst. Thirst for justice, thirst for joy, thirst for a love that we're all a part of. We drink from the well. We drink from together. Hand in hand we are standing as one, standing for justice, standing for joy, stand for a love that we're all a part of. We drink from the well. Open the doors to the world outside, spirits renewed from within. Look for the dream in each other's eyes, to mark where a new world begins. Yes, we drink from the well together. Heart to heart we are dancing as one, dancing for justice, dancing for joy, dance for a love that we're all a part of. We drink from the well, spirits renewed. We drink from the well, stand hand in hand. We drink from the well, dancing for joy. I feel my heart swell. We drink from the well.
First announcement, we have new chalice mugs. Yeah, I know, they'll be out there for refreshments. If you would like to take one home, you're welcome to do so. We'd ask for you to make a $10 donation, and you can just do that by text or drop it into the box. You don't need to put your name, we trust you. If you are an elder who remembers that you were supposed to get a mug from our gift service a couple months ago, I haven't forgotten you. And so we do have some church elders who will be getting mugs to in the next few weeks.
The highly anticipated Keyboard Kaleidoscope 6 concert is just days away. The concert will be coming Saturday, June 15th at 2 p.m. right here in the chapel. As you can tell, there's an extra piano already. 6 talented pianists will be performing a wide variety of music for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 hands. Wow, that's a lot of hands. There will also be refreshments as well as a piano puzzler audience contest with real prizes, not fake prizes like we usually have. If you purchased a ticket for this concert back in 2020 and you have a memory that can remember that, those tickets will still be honored. Otherwise, you can reserve a seat for just $20 by emailing, and this is an easy email address to remember, music@chaliceucongregation.org. See you on Saturday.
Debbie Rethler?
Hello. So you may or may not be aware that Chalice has a group of letter writers working in conjunction with the program called Vote Forward. It's the 3rd year that we've been involved with this Get Out the Vote effort, and Vote Forward compiles statistics and has shown that the letter writing definitely does increase voter turnout. So we are hoping to reach 15,500 potential voters this year, this election cycle. And Paul Courtwright and Susan Llewellyn, who lead this effort, have secured a grant from the Spirit Level Foundation to cover the cost of postage, envelopes, and printing and other such. The grant's going to cover about 75% of the anticipated costs, and we are fundraising during the month of June to raise the remaining $3,258, a nice specific number. So this election feels really critical to me, and I'm guessing it does to many of you as well. So as I've said in the Vote Forward letters that I've written, our democracy feels like it is at stake. So I'm encouraging everybody here to vote, and also asking if you would consider making a donation to help support Chalice's efforts. And if you'd like to donate via text, you can use the same phone number that was on the screen earlier and just write UU the vote after your pledge amount. No? UU vote, sorry, UU vote. I stand corrected, literally. Or you could also go onto the website and make a donation and also a comment, UU vote. Thank you so much for considering helping. Yes?
Can I join you an hour before the Keyboard Kaleidoscope to write letters?
Is the group doing that? Yes. Oh, I was not aware. I've not kept up with my email. Absolutely, anybody who's interested in writing letters is more than welcome to join. We welcome your participation. And I'll be around afterwards if anyone else has questions.
Okay, today is the day. It's our congregational meeting for Chalice members. After the second service at 12:30, we need a quorum for this meeting. That is 33% of our voting members. So we hope you can all attend, go out, run some errands, come back, be back around 12:30. It's all good. Yay, so hope to see you there. There will be food. Oh, yeah, food, graffiti.
We will be there.
Join us for a multi-generational summer solstice celebration on June 21st, 2024 from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. You're invited to bring a dish to share. You're also invited to bring an object from nature to contribute to our summer solstice altar. Activities include potluck dinner, drum circle, games, crafts, face painting, bonfire, and s'mores. This event is made possible by the Spirit Booster team, Drum Circle, Family Ministry team, Young Adult Group, and generous volunteers like you. Watch for information and a link to a volunteer sign up this week.
All right. And finally, our social hour will begin in just a few minutes online at this same Zoom link and in person in our courtyard. Those of you who are here in person might want to bring your refreshments into the green room and have a visit with our online congregants. Reverend Sharon and I look forward to greeting you at the chapel doors to hear how the service was meaningful for you. Peace be with you and enjoy the day.